You don't know that it was Raq, Kanan. All he said is that somebody maybe saw a black lady walking out of the apartment.
Tell me you don't think it was her, Joe. If you ain't with me, you against me.
Now, one of the biggest questions from Power is, how could Kanan kill Duke, especially with their relationship in raising Kanan? The easy surface level answer that you can give is the fact he killed Jukebox to save Tariq, but you guys know we never take the easy surface level answer. It's not that simple, it never is with Power, and it never is when it comes to the relationship between these two, because it definitely went a lot deeper than just Kanan saving Tariq. I started to really ask the question when we were first introduced to the younger versions of Duke and Kanan back in season 1. How can you go from this in Raising Kanan to this in Power, where you could really sense some underlying tension between the two? That's why I always stood on the fact there would be a moment where their relationship takes a big turn. Kanan's relationship with Raq, the rest of his family, and Jukebox is one of the biggest questions everybody seems to ask. Well, look at how close Kanan is to Duke. How could he possibly kill her the way he does in Power? And I'll tell you, we do give a full and complete answer to that question for sure. That was Sasha Penn talking about how Kanan could kill Duke back in Power, and that's one of the two topics we are going to be breaking down in detail in this breakdown when it comes to Duke. In part 1, we're going to be taking a look at her relationship with Raq, and in part 2, the turn and fight with Kanan, and what could contribute towards this really cold relationship we saw in Power, and generally what's next for Jukebox in all things Raising Kanan Season 5. Now, one of the things that was becoming quite apparent at the beginning of Season 4 was the fact they were beginning to isolate Raq. Kanan was slipping further away due to the influence of Snaps and Pop. Marvin had his side hustle with Stefano. Stefano wanted to get rid of Raq. Unique was attacking her organization in more ways than one. Kanan was blaming her for everything that was also going wrong and so much more. But the one person she could actually lean on, count on, share secrets with, and also feel some sort of last resort kind of connection with Kanan was her relationship with Duke. We saw when Raq was pregnant at the beginning of Season 4, she not only turned to Duke, but she also opened up to her about her relationship with Unique. It goes back to the relationship and bond they built when Jukebox was living under Raq's roof. However, with Duke living under Raq's roof, being closer to her Aunt Raq, not exactly being noticed because all the attention was always on Kanan, it doesn't mean she wasn't able to see what was going on. Duke is someone who's been well aware of the world that she lives in, the people around her, Queens, the consequences of this world. She's someone who's been quite clued on from day one, and as Jukebox has grown older, she's now starting to see things from a different lens. One of the things that happens in this series that I take pride in is that as these characters get older, their eyes open wider, they start to see who these people are in their lives, and they get a fuller sense of the world around them. Duke has always been the conscious of this series. She's always had an awareness that other characters haven't.
See, maybe even better than anybody.
I think Raq in that moment is shocked and devastated that Duke wouldn't be on her side, and that Duke wouldn't necessarily believe she didn't have anything to do with Famous and Crystal's deaths. Raq had been there for Duke throughout the series, so I think it feels like a betrayal from Raq's point of view. Like, how could you think I would do something like this? I think she feels really alone, because Duke has always been the one person she's been able to come to and really be herself with. I think she's pissed off when you see her in the diner with Duke. It's unsettling. And this is the thing when it comes to any season finale in Raising Kanan. In the build-up, some of you may remember I said get ready for some really intense and feisty conversation, especially when it comes to Raq. In seasons 1 and 2 it was with Lou, there was a complete role reversal in season 3, but in season 4 there was one with Marvin, Kanan at the end, but I'd even put this one up here with Jukebox because we know how much it hurt Raq. Just have a look at her reaction. Now having said that, I always make a point of looking at different perspectives, and Jukebox probably felt all Raq ever did was bring the conversation back to Kanan. Whenever she was with Duke, the conversation often led back to, so what's Kanan up to? Check up on Kanan, look after Kanan. And also because she knows who her Aunt Raq is. She knows what she's capable of, and she knows what she's done before. Classic example, D-Wiz. From Raq's point of view, she feels hurt because Duke has been a source of comfort for her throughout the 4 seasons. But also because she's also been there for Duke. When Marvin was in prison, she raised Duke. She was there to support her back in season 1 when she came out to Raq. She was there to support her whether it came to music or joining the army. So, the fact that this happened here at the diner, it definitely hurt Raq, because Jukebox walking away wasn't just the fact she was losing the one person she could trust and lean on, but it was the last source of connection to her and Kanan. Listen to what Sasha Penn said. It's not lost on Raq that Duke is the closest person to Kanan. So certainly if she's lost Duke, she's also lost Kanan, right? Especially since Jukebox has been her sort of access point to Kanan throughout their relationship. And she has used Jukebox to keep an eye on Kanan, So, to feel that from Jukebox, who has also idolized Raq and in many aspects modeled herself after Raq, to lose her is almost like losing everything. So definitely a rocky relationship going forward between the two, because Juke isn't just going to be there for Raq as she has been before. It definitely will be interesting to see her reaction when she finds out what happened here, which even we can't be 100% sure, but no doubt it will contribute to a very rocky relationship between her and Kanan. With that being said, let's talk about the situation with Kanan. One of the big stories we have to tell in this series is how Jukebox and Kanan ultimately became at odds with each other. We do tell that story, and a piece of that story is them getting older and realizing who they are individually rather than collectively, because so far they've grown up together, they've only known each other as a unit, but now they're beginning to start to understand themselves as individuals, and that can be a really rocky transition. So circling back to the beginning where we spoke about Jukebox and Kanan's relationship, Sasha Penn knows all about the one big question that needs to be answered in raising Kanan / Power Origins. The question that a lot of us have been asking since the beginning of season 1. How can Kanan kill Jukebox when their relationship was full of so much love?
Love you.
I love you too.
Back in season 1, when Kanan introduced Juke, he said he didn't love anyone more than Juke. Whenever he had issues with Raq, or whatever else he was going through, it was always Jukebox who was there for him. Even when Kanan accidentally had a hand in Nicole's death, who at the time was Jukebox's girlfriend, she still didn't throw the blame in Kanan's direction. She said it was because of the fucked up world that they live in. Nicole definitely shouldn't have taken the crack from Jukebox's bag for sure, but Kanan did make a huge fuck up. Despite Juke going through all her shit in season 2 with Kenya and hair problems, she was always there to listen to Kanan. Just have a look at Jukebox's reaction here. She was really hurting because of what she was going through, but she was still there for Kanan. More recently in season 4, we've seen her be there for Kanan after Fame's death. She was by his side when they went to go look for answers, all the way down to comforting him when she told him about Crystal's death. In episode 10, we had Kanan literally crying in Jukebox's arms, with Juke comforting Kanan. That's how much Juke has been there for Kanan. So how'd you go from this in raising Kanan to then this in Power? There was definitely a lot more to it than just Kanan caring a bit for Tariq. There was no way it was just the fact that he started to care for Tariq St. Patrick. And this brings me on to the tension between Kanan and Jukebox back in Power. When we were first introduced to Juke back in season 3 of Power, you could sense that there was some real fear in Kanan when it came to Juke. There was some underlying history here that they didn't go into or didn't get time to go into, because Anika Rose, who played the older Juke, she was casted for a regular for another TV show, so she then had to be killed off on Power. Had she stuck around for a bit longer, maybe we would have got a bit more backstory to Juke. But not many people could put fear into Kanan the way Juke did. When Juke spoke, he listened. When she came up with a plan, it was always her plan, right up until the end when he switched it up.
This way you break him twice. Once in a pocket, once in a heart. Kill his kid. You ride off into the sunset. Right?
There was definitely a level of fear here because something happened in the past between them, which they couldn't answer in Power, and we'll definitely get to the scar on Kanan's neck in just a moment. But going back to the question, how could he possibly kill her the way he does in Power? And I'll tell you, we do give a full answer and a complete answer to that question, for sure. Now we can definitely start to look at these storylines and plots, where Kanan is, who he's hanging around with, and how we can already piece maybe some of the puzzle together. Not all, but definitely some. Part of the pieces is definitely Snaps and Pops' influence. In one of my breakdowns, I spoke about how Juke is very much aware of the world that she lives in, which even dates back to season 1. Sasha Penn also said something very similar in the sense of her opening her eyes, she's becoming wiser and more smarter. But I would also argue she's always been smart since season 1. She's always been good at reading Kanan, she sees straight through his bullshit. You also look at the scene when she walked into the club with Kanan back in season 3. She knew exactly who each and every single player was, including Snaps and Pop. And over the last couple of episodes, especially since Famous's death, you could really sense the tide was beginning to turn, because they kinda disagreed on who may or may not have been behind the hit. Kanan thought it was Raq based on what he saw in episode 407, but Jukebox always had her doubts. Even in episode 10, we heard Jukebox mention that Snaps and Pop were always working an angle. It sounded just like them to throw Kanan in Raq's direction, and she is definitely right. What did Kanan's narration say at the beginning? You have to control your emotions because people can use them against you in the streets. And that's exactly what Snaps and Pop have been doing over the past couple of episodes. They're using Kanan's emotions that he feels for Raq against him, by pinning Famous's death on Raq, which now also makes it look like she was behind Crystal's death. Whereas for Juke, even though she does care about Kanan, even though she was Famous's friend as well, she's not exactly feeling what he's feeling, so she can see the chessboard a lot more clearer than he can. She can see that Snaps and Pop are lying to him, although she's not exactly 100% sure herself. She's definitely got an inkling, that's for sure, but she's not 100%. But if you're talking about what's going to contribute towards Kanan killing Duke, here's the start. Snaps and Pop manipulating Kanan and turning him against Raq, turning him against the Thomases, which brings me on to Kanan potentially taking this shot here. If Kanan did take this shot on Raq, big problems ahead between him and the rest of the Thomases, that's for sure. Duke did try and stop him, she tried to make him see sense, she even picked up the phone, although we don't know who she exactly tried to call, or whether she came to Raq's house herself to try and stop Kanan. They've left this ending definitely open to interpretation, but Snaps and Pop's manipulation, it is going to be a contributing factor towards this rift between Kanan and Duke. If Kanan and Breeze also start working with Unique, again, that's working with the enemy, that's also another contributing factor to a potential rift with Duke. Breeze's introduction, that's also another that will contribute towards pulling Kanan further away from Duke. Breeze's influence on Kanan is going to be huge in Season 5, and also in Power Origins. We're really going to start to see them build their relationship, and no doubt, it's going to come at the cost of others, mainly this one here with Duke, so Breeze will definitely be playing a part. Now here's something I noticed in the last 2 episodes of Season 4. They've also started to slowly bring Aisha back into Duke's life. She's back in New York, and initially when these exclusive images were released for episode 9, I thought, uh-oh, here we go, another innocent civilian life lost. Fortunately, nothing happened to her in Season 4, not yet. I mentioned Nicole earlier on because Duke didn't blame Kanan for her death, but what if something happens to Aisha and Kanan is involved? They've not brought Aisha back for no reason. Her and Duke are also getting closer again. You have to ask the question, why? To no doubt tear it apart and break her heart yet again. And if Kanan is involved, then you can see them having that fight. You can see Jukebox giving him that scar, which is a scar of a lifetime. Maybe Kanan's reputation takes a big hit during that period, being fucked up by Duke in a fight. I mean, that's just one scenario out of so many, which falls in line with history, civilians getting caught in a crossfire, adding more depth and coldness to Duke's character, and also contributing towards this fight between Kanan and Duke, where she gives him this scar. Either way, however Sasha Penn decides to do it, they are going to be answering this question of why he was able to kill her the way he does in Power. There's a lot more history and a lot more happened between Kanan and Duke back in the 90s. They're going to give us a complete answer to this question, and it may not just be in Raising Kanan, it may be something that rumbles on into Power Origins, but eventually the question will definitely be answered. With that being said, drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section and let me know what you think of Duke's relationship with Raq, and also the shift between Kanan and Duke's relationship. What do you think will contribute to Kanan's decision in killing Duke, besides Tariq? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.